The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. Patrick Henry.
America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it would be because we destroyed ourselves. Abraham Lincoln.
I predict future happiness for Americans if they can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. Thomas Jefferson.
Property is surely a right of mankind as real as liberty. John Adams.
The Constitution is the guide which I never will abandon. George Washington.
Welcome to the Saturday morning wake-up call. This is hour one of Patriots Lament right here on KFAR. For the next 2 hours, we are going to be challenging your perspective on life, possibly shaking up the very way that you conceive of reality, especially if you are a product of the public school system or a statist, which I guess that is kind of what the end product of the public schools is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All right, joining us in the studio, as always, from Bighorn Enterprises, here is Josh Bennett. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
All right, you have a...
Oh, yeah. I just didn't know if they were going to good morning over here.
All right, we've got... I was going to say, do you want to introduce these other people over
That's true. You can still wish you a good morning, even if you're not.
We've got Spawn of Bennett and Spawn of Floyd here in the studio today this morning. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
All right, good to have you here.
I guess we'll just start off with this. So many wonderful things to talk about out there. It's hard to pick and choose. Maybe, I think it's one of the grandest things right now is the NSA spying and everyone's freaking out about. And Sensenbrenner I thought was hilarious. When I wrote up the Patriot Act, I never meant for this kind of stuff to happen. In other words, I wrote it for George W. Bush, my buddy. I never meant for Obama to be able to wield the power. Is basically what it is. You never give your friends power that you're afraid that your enemies might get later. So everyone's freaking out about it. What I think's the greatest thing is that, for the most part, the Democrats are jumping up and down against Obama, and Republicans are defending him. You got your McCain's and your, what's his name, King, and the, I think he's part of the Homeland Defense or whatever committee in the Republican side, and he says, by golly, we need these things to protect us. We need them. And he was congratulating the president for his destruction of personal liberties and destroying what was left of the Fourth Amendment, if there was anything left. And I've heard some Christian people on the Christian right, that are up there that people actually think are wonderful, saying, yeah, we Christians don't need to worry about this. We have to stop the Muslims because they're going to ride their goats across the Atlantic Ocean and kill all of us Christians.
Well, I think my favorite comment this week about the whole NSA tapping in and getting Verizon's records, I can't remember who it was. I was looking through that article I just handed you to see if they quoted him. But one of our lawmakers basically said, you know what? I don't have anything to hide. There's no reason why they can't look and see who I called. And as if somehow keeping a list of who talks to whom is perfectly normal behavior and perfectly innocent in terms of, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. Do you recall off the top of your head what state agency of what country used that exact same motto? If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear.
Well, there's a few recently, wasn't there?
Well, I'm thinking
within the last 70 years.
Well, specifically, one that a country that began in 1917 and collapsed in 1991.
Soviet Union.
It was the motto of the
comrades.
The motto of the KGB. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear.
What I think is great is that people are actually surprised about it. They obviously don't listen to this show. Or actually, people probably listen to the show are still surprised about it. I mean, how long since day one we've talked about this stuff? And they're doing the emails. They're doing basically every electronic transmission you make is being recorded. Every one of them. And I heard that Google and a few of the other ones are saying, "Oh," and Apple's saying, "Oh, we don't do that." Yeah, right. Yeah, they do. They're liars. Of course, they're not going to tell us, yeah, we've been turning it over too, because what's going to happen, people will turn off their subscriptions. They'll quit using them. They'll go to different browsers like Tor, where that's encrypted. Start using Tor. I mean, there's so many things. The great thing about free market is that it always survives and kicks the state's butt, because there's already great things out there where you can get apps for your phone. You can get an app for your phone right now, and if the other person has the same app that you call, your cell phone, I'm talking specifically, you can encrypt your telephone conversations, your text messages. You can encrypt your emails, give your different people that you want to have be able to read yours. You give them a little password, and boom, they get to read it. No one else can. Totally impossible to be, I mean, nothing's impossible, but very difficult to be transcribed into what's been encrypted. So, Democrats complaining about Obama, who I thought was great. I heard him, what was that, Thursday or Friday, and he said, Americans got to realize you can't be 100% secure and 100% free at the same time. Or no, actually, I misquoted. He said you can't be 100% secure and have 100% privacy at the same time. So I guess it's up to us, which path do we follow? 100% security or 100% liberty? We know for a fact, because there's been attacks, the government can't keep you safe. So there's no such thing as 100% security. There's no such thing. If there was such thing as 100% security, you wouldn't need... There's always going to be instances so they can remind you that you need them to protect you. They allow that. They allow it. They transcribe it. They make it occur. It's just... FBI. Does anybody ever wonder why every time there is a terrorist attack, the FBI happened to be involved with it or knew of the people or just talked to them or whatever? I don't know. I'm going nuts. I just can't believe people are so stupid. I mean, should we start playing American Idiot now? Wait till it's just mind-boggling. And people are surprised. The Republicans are all for it. The dirty rats like McCain and Lindsey, two of the most vile scum in Congress. It just boggles my mind. And they'll get reelected. It's funny now that some news agencies are having old Ron Paul on after the fact. And he's like, what? I've been talking about this for 30 years. I'm not surprised. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. People have got to decide for themselves, liberty or security.
On this, if you think about it, this kind of thing has been happening for the entire scope of human history. Mm-hmm. As long as you have the political power aspect, as long as you have one group of people wielding power over another, and whether it's a mob, like what happened in the French Revolution, which incidentally is the same thing as beginning to happen here in this country. Mm-hmm. All you got to do is just get enough people who agree with you, and you can go out and get anything accomplished, pass any bill you want, kill anybody you want to with indemnity. As long as the mob is behind you, you're going to walk free. And God help you if the mob turns against you. I was just watching part of Gladiator last night, that Russell Crowe movie. Mm-hmm. And there was a classic line in that in which one of the senators, looking out at the vast throngs that had showed up to watch this do-nothing Caesar come in and being hailed as a hero, He had absolutely done nothing of value. He had done nothing, no accomplishment whatsoever, and yet people are hailing him as a god. And one of the senators mentions to the other that Rome is the mob. And as long as you keep the mob happy, you'll do just fine.
Bread and circuses.
Yeah.
This is where we are today, bread and circuses. You have your TV programs and your food stamps or whatever they are, whatever. It's just, we're at a precipice, though. It's kind of neat. There's kind of three factions going along right now. You have a faction that likes the status quo. They want freebies, they want tax, they want big government. They like that. They want security more than freedom. Total security, cradle to grave. And then there's another faction that wants to, which is kind of the surge right now. This is a faction that's kind of gaining momentum right now, is the faction that wants to limit what's going on. They want to stop the IRS. I heard Ted Cruz the other day on the radio, and he said, this is the time where we can actually get in there and stop the IRS, get rid of the IRS, and get into a fair tax. I know I said flat tax. I mix them up because they're both ironic. So he wants to get rid of the IRS. This is our opportunity to abolish the IRS and get a flat tax in there, which you'll end up paying more through a flat tax. But that's the momentum. That's the side that's building momentum now. The side that says, "Oh, we need to change things and make them the rulers that we want in there, so we can be ruled the way we want to be ruled, and it's not going to be any different than what is now, just a change of faces." I mean, it's either extreme fascism or extreme fascism. I heard a good thing of Lou Rockwell a little while ago, and he was talking about everyone's afraid of the commies. And I hear this all the time about Obama, is that he's a communist, right? What is it? Islamic communist. Blah, blah, blah. He's an Islamic and he's a communist and socialist, and they try to diversify the two. But he's a fascist. The state is this particular state is nothing. We're not Soviet Russia. We're an extreme form, a gigantic form of Nazi Germany, fascist Germany, because we have big government totally in bed with big business running the serfs. What is it? Just I'm jumping around here, but it all has to do with the same thing. The guy that's the new head of the FDA, just put there by Obama, used to be the vice president of Monsanto.
So, no, wait a second. Let's back that up for somebody who doesn't know that the Food and Drug Administration, that's the arm of the government which sanctions particular foods and denies people access to other foods.
Correct.
It says you are approved to eat this. We give you permission to buy this particular food because it is fine for you to eat. And then it says we do not permit you to eat this food over here. This food is dangerous. We are going to outlaw this particular food. Things that they have approved include genetically modified fish, the so-called Frankenfish. Which, by the way, Senator Begich, who so many people seem to despise because he has a D after his name, has been he has been a fervent supporter of the idea of getting rid of the FDA approval for genetically modified fish.
Yeah, he's got a campaign going for it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, okay, that's kind of a side note in terms of the politics of it. Who cares? The fact of the matter is that you have a political law telling you what you can and can't eat. And what they're telling you you can eat are things that you can't catch. There are things that you can't grow on your own. The things that they're telling you you can eat are things that are grown by men in farms, whether it's fish farms or, in the case of Monsanto, and that's what Monsanto is the biggest food producing, and by the way, genetically modified foods organization in the world.
Yeah.
They've already been banned in Europe, basically. They've been kicked out of Europe. In Hungary, I believe they just burned down every single field that had any kind of genetically modified food in it.
I heard that in China they burned like 6 million tons or 600 million. It was an astronomical number of GMO corn.
Yeah.
Just burnt it.
Well, and if
had a big old fire.
If you think, oh, what a waste of food, the squirrels won't even eat genetically modified corn. You put just genetically modified corn out there in the field, free for the squirrels. They won't eat it. They wouldn't touch it. There's something wrong with it. If there's food that an animal won't eat, there's something wrong.
Right, and that's the tie. This is the whole tie with fascism. The guy that used to be the vice president of Monsanto,
who has
whatever
a lot
it's called,
to gain financially
Yes.
by having somebody in the FDA to approve their food.
is the head of the FDA. And I bet he's still got a pretty good stock in Monsanto, and I bet he gets a paycheck from him every week. Maybe he's paid daily. I don't know. He probably makes enough where he gets paid monthly.
And even if he doesn't have a direct financial tie, he might. Even if he doesn't, okay, just the very fact that he used to work there means that his buddies are being helped directly by the actions he's taken in the FDA.
Absolutely.
And isn't there just something in the back of your mind that says that maybe that might be wrong?
He left
Not in
Monsanto.
the back of your mind.
Oh, really? So
Right in the front.
It's right there.
He left Monsanto, I don't know how to say it.
It's an O.
Mon? Okay.
Yeah, Monsanto.
Monsanto, to be the head of the FDA. So he says that raw milk is evil. And if you even attempt to sell it, you can go to jail. Actually, you can go to jail for claiming it has health benefits, just for the claim. You don't even have to sell it. Somebody doesn't even have to buy it from you, just claim it has health benefits. You can go to jail for it. What was something else? There's several things that, anything natural is bad for you, and they try to make it illegal. So just going back to the fascist thing, we live in a fascist nation. And we're not communists, we're fascists.
Define that, and so that somebody who's been through, again, this constant bombardment of propaganda, they think of fascists as Nazis. You mean that they want to kill 6 million people? It's not about...
No, I think that's weak sauce right there.
Right, no. But fascism comes from the Italian fascisti, which means a bundle of sticks.
Yep.
Goes back to the ancient Rome, where that bundle of sticks was one of the symbols that ancient Rome used.
Isn't that on our dollar?
Gosh, it sure is. But that issue of the bundle of sticks that's where you get your power from.
Right.
And that bundling...
There's a unity.
Exactly. That bundling is what we're getting through here in terms of the businesses. The businesses come together and bundle together. They gather together and get the government to go out and pass laws that benefit the business.
Yeah, it's a marriage between huge business and huge government. It's a total incorporation of the two. It's basically they are one big corporation. It's called Fascist States of America. Look at right here in, what state are we in? Alaska.
Alaska?
Yeah. The tax bill, HB 213179, whatever it is. I think it's 31. So that whole thing, I'm against taxes, but I think it's pretty funny that two of the senators or state house, whatever, that were pushing it and wrote it, whatever, pushing it the most, used to work for Conoco.
Well, and to take just one step back from that, the governor, the one who has
was a lobbyist.
He was a lobbyist for
Conoco,
the oil company. Exactly. So when you look
not to
at
give him a tax break too.
Does anyone think at all for just a moment, gee, that might be a conflict of interest? You know what? Oh, you're familiar with this conflict of interest laws here in Alaska?
I didn't know there was any.
No, it is a joke. It is a joke. Basically, if the legislature gets together, you're required to declare, I have a conflict of interest. And then the legislature votes right there. Your fellow legislators say, no, you have to vote on it.
Oh, right. Whether you actually do.
Exactly.
And they're never going to say you do because you might have one sometime.
Exactly. So it's like this...
fascist.
Well, I was going to say good old boys club where they cover each other's butts all the time and everybody votes on everything.
Let's just call them fascist. All of them. All of them. So, man, we've been jumping. We're doing good though.
There's a theme here today.
Yeah, back to that. What I was talking about, these different groups that are making headway right now. They're the Mark Levins, the Glenn Becks. There's that movement right there. But it focuses mostly around Obama, right? If we just got rid of Obama, everything would be fine. And they'll throw, just because it's so blatantly obvious, they can't deny it or hide it anymore. So they'll throw Bush under the bus a little bit. Yeah, he started it, but he never imagined that it would ever get to this point where we would be doing these sorts of things, even though they were doing those sorts of things. Like I said with Sensenbrenner, I never imagined that the Patriot Act would actually be used. Basically, yeah, right.
Why did you pass it then?
Why did you write it?
Why did you propose that you give the government the power to take away everyone's freedom?
For safety and security. And you know what? It don't matter about, they're not concerned about your safety and security or my safety and security. All of it has to do with the safety and security of the state. They want to protect the state, the fascist state. That's all those laws are, is to protect themselves.
Monsanto.
They don't care.
Got a bill through the U.S. Senate, and I believe I'm not sure if it passed the House or not, but I know it's passed the Senate, that specifically protects them from labeling.
Oh, yeah.
You can't even label their food.
I think it's law now.
As genetically modified. You can't even label their food so that, as a consumer, you will not know what is genetically modified and what is not.
I thought the FDA was there to label foods so we knew what we were ingesting in our bodies. Like McDonald's, they have to have a little deal on their burger to tell you how disgusting it is. Like you don't already know, but you don't care because it tastes so good. But you do it anyway.
And it's affordable.
Exactly. They force them, but if it's Monsanto, I mean, come on. It's the biggest fascist thing going on. And we're just fighting for different fascism. We're going to fight for a flat tax. We're going to fight for a fair tax. Oxymoron. There's nothing fair about it. Flat just means, it's just frustrating. Then there's the other side. There is another group that's gaining momentum, and them's the folks that wanted to get rid of all of it. All of it. Get rid of the fascist state altogether. And guess what? More and more and more people are coming around to it. I heard that there was like a Freedom Fest down, I don't remember, dang it, what was it called? Down in Chile. That's just interesting because we like to talk about that place. Ron Paul went there to speak, and I get there were thousands of Chileans there that went to this thing just to hear him speak. That's sweet. That is sweet. This thing is circling the globe. They're circling the globe. Circling the globe. People are done with it. Why? Because they're tired of their money being debased, devalued, stolen. It's going to be interesting. This is what we always talk about with this revolutionary talk, right? I can see if there's like three factions fighting each other right now. There's the faction that's there, the faction that wants to not change anything, but just have different people in there. Then there's the other faction that just wants to get rid of it all, dump it.
There is another faction, I think, too. If you think about it, there are those who think that we have not gone far enough in terms of the global community of coming together under one leadership. We just need
I think I'd throw those in the people that are there now.
Really?
The status quo. It's kind of what they're... I think that's part of the whole thing with the Middle East.
You know what's going on in, I was going to say, you know what's going on in Turkey right now?
Yeah.
With the protests. Those started when some environmentalists started protesting about how the government was tearing down some trees in a park. And the environmentalists were joined by the Islamists, who want to overthrow the current government. Why on earth would those two work together? Because I think that one of them is useful idiots for the other, and I don't think
friend is my enemy is my enemy.
I think that the environmentalists are the useful idiots, because
absolutely, they have been.
Once you overthrow the government, once you get rid of the ones in power and the ones who seize the power, do you see a tree hugger going out there and killing people? Or do you see an Islamist going out there and killing people?
Yeah, and killing the tree hugger.
Yeah, exactly. You help us get to power, and we promise we'll take care of you once we get power.
6 feet below the ground.
We'll take care of you, all right. I mean, and that's happening in this country too. Is that there are people like the, you go back to the protests last year, the Occupy people. Was it last year? Or is that 2 years ago?
I think it's been 2 now.
I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, because Dave was still here.
Yeah. So the Occupy.
I remember my
Street
time frame
people,
on when Dave Giesel was around.
And they had. I think that they were right to protest, but I think that what they were protesting was wrong.
Well, what their end state, what they wanted.
Exactly.
They wanted government to protect them more from government.
I mean, when you go in there and you basically say, we are not oppressed enough, come and put the boot on my neck, and make sure that you put the boot on his neck. That doesn't help anybody at all.
But when the boot's on your neck, it doesn't matter if it's right or left boot. Both of them choke you out.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's a fantastic week. All these things happening, and everyone's like, "Argh!" It's like, that kind of makes me chuckle.
Got some fantastic calls on my show yesterday.
Did you?
Along those same lines, too, in terms of the callers recognizing that what we need is to get out from under government, and we don't need government reform. We don't need tax reform. We need to get rid of these things. And you can't do that unless people are willing to govern themselves.
Right now, De La Boete's whole deal, voluntary discourse on voluntary servitude, is so, I don't want to say it's prophetic, but it's right now. It's real time today. The answer is right there in what he wrote. And I guess what comes out on the other side is going to be what people end up doing. I don't have a lot of hope that people will do the right thing because most of them are public school educated, but let's take the calls after the break.
All right, we're coming up on the Fox News and a couple of lines on hold. 458-TALK is the number if you'd like to call in. If you're outside of our area code, drop in the 907 first. 907-458-TALK.
You've got another home for Fox News and Fairbanks. KFAR.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. President Obama and the Chinese president opening their second day of talks at a summit in Rancho Mirage, California.
The Obama administration wanted to come in with a strong hand and really press the Chinese on cybersecurity, but there's been these revelations suggesting that the Obama administration has expanded the Bush administration surveillance to try and disrupt terror attacks. The president defending all of this yesterday by saying it's a limited surveillance, it's legal, and that there's a tough balance here between security and privacy rights.
Fox's Ed Henry in Palm Springs. For the first time since 2002, on NBC Sports, our national anthem at the French Open. After Serena Williams beats Maria Sharapova 6-4, 6-4 in the women's final, Williams was the last American singles champ at that Open when she beat her sister Venus in 2002. Fox News. We report, you decide.
KFAR never takes a vacation.
Business is a rat race.
We're here all day, every day. Local Talk Radio, 660 AM.
All right, welcome back to Hour 1 of Patriots Lament. We call it the Saturday Morning Wake-Up Call. The entire point of the show is to talk about liberty and not politics. But, sometimes the two intersect in ways that really can't be avoided. Josh Bennett here in the studio from Bighorn Enterprises. He is the creative force of the show. And he is busy texting somebody right now. So, Josh...
No, I'm not. Oh, yeah.
Would you like to go to the phones?
Sure. I wanted to, just real quick thing, Jim Keene, I remind you, when you hear these people saying, oh, we didn't release these things, blah, 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 like Google and Apple and those, the documents that were leaked actually say in there that these companies may not, under threat of violence from the state, say that they actually did this stuff. So, of course, they're going to say that they didn't. Otherwise, they go to jail. The state will kill them. And we don't want the state to kill them. And they don't want the state to kill them. So, of course, it's going to be the CIA's wonderfully invented phrase, plausible deniability.
You know what one of the funniest parts is? That we're freaking out on the government for doing this, quote unquote, and we're saying, oh, you can't do this, it's not legal. But then the president says, oh, don't worry, guys, it's legal. Oh, it's legal. Oh, wait.
Oh,
okay.
that's good. That's a really
for
good
a second
point.
there.
But what kills me is the way it gets legal is wait, that's not legal. Oh, well, let's pass the law. Oh, now it's legal.
Now it's legal.
You're good.
Wait, a judge said it was. Whew. Oh, that's good.
Well, on the Fox News report right there, the reporter said, the president saying it's legal, okay.
Go back to your farms and produce wealth for us.
Go back inside your house if you want to live.
That's right. That's hilarious.
Well, that's what they were saying on the streets of Boston. I mean, so many of these things tie together in ways that are, sometimes you don't think about it. They almost seem like random, unconnected tidbits. And I think part of that is it's intentional. How do we get our information today? We get it in sound bites. We don't get the context. We think about the way journalism used to be.
LouRockwell.com.
You go back and you look at a newspaper from 100 years ago. This is how somebody got their information. The stories were in depth. They were well written. You could actually understand. And, oh, by the way, they had multiple sources. Now, everything is cut and paste. One person makes some wild claim out there, and if a news organization picks up on it, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, all of a sudden you're, multiple sources here. Wait, what are your sources? Are the news organizations? That doesn't count, brother.
Well, the only way I know how to paddle is in a canoe with one paddle going one way. Circle, circle, circle. Yeah, it's circular reasoning. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. But it works. Apparently, probably 99% of the people fall for the crap. I mean, because they say it's legal, and then someone goes, oh, man, I was really, like Israel just said, I was really upset till I found that out.
Well, the way he says, don't worry, it's legal, he's basically saying it is a holy cause. Basically, legal means it's justified.
Wasn't there another term that he used, though, too? It's legal and limited?
Yeah, legal and limited.
Legal and of course, everybody wants limited government, right?
Yeah, limited cancer kills you slower.
I just want limited death.
It's just
limited murder.
It's legal. It's legal, so it's okay. How does that make sense? So does that mean anything that is legal is okay?
Yes. He got it.
Exactly right. And anything that's illegal
is wrong.
Is wrong. So if they go out there and they post a sign that even though you've been going 25 miles an hour, and then they post a sign that says 20 miles an hour, you are now wrong.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. The activity that you were doing yesterday, because they have changed the law on you, is now illegal.
I loved the head of the NSA the other day said that, people need to calm down because there's no reason to get upset, blah, 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 because, the original intent and scope of this was to just, track people overseas that could be threats to the United States government. He didn't say government. And so people, their intentions were good. And the scope of their work was to just track some people across the seas. Just because they happen to get everyone's stuff shouldn't make you upset, because that's not what they intended to do. It was just to get those brown people that might want to blow us up. I love it. I mean, that's their excuse. Well, that's not what we meant to do. Well, I guess that should be a justifiable defense for anyone then in court, right? Well, I didn't mean to do it. Like, I intended to only rob one bank just because I had a wild spree and hit 6 of them when I started out. I was aiming for that one guy. Well, I can't help that I have a full auto and sprayed everyone. killed them all. I intended just to kill him.
That is an excellent point right there. If you were to go out and have a bar fight with one other person, and you accidentally killed that other person, you might be able to get off, in terms of legally, on justifiable homicide.
Right.
Well, at least he had good intentions.
But if you get in a bar fight and you kill 3 people, even though your fight was only with one person, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Why is the government? Why do the rules not apply to those in power?
Because they make the rules.
Oh, exactly. We're going to take this phone. All right.
Yeah,
458 Talk is the number. Caller, are you still there? Good morning.
Cleaned them out.
You got one, I think.
Hello?
Hey, who is this?
Steve?
You're Steve?
No, Steve. This is Token Socialist.
Oh, hi, Token. Yeah, this is Steve. What's on your mind today?
I'd like to say something about Voltaire, if I may.
Yes.
Well, 18th century philosopher Voltaire wrote this little book called Candide, and it was about this young man, Candide, and his mentor, Dr. Pangloss, and their learning experiences around the world. And so, excuse me, Candide and Dr. Pangloss are standing just outside a sugar plantation in the West Indies along the road, and they see a slave hopping towards them on one leg. This slave has had 2 arms and 1 leg amputated in an accident associated with the machinery involved in the refining of sugar. Excuse me. So the slave comes hopping down the road, and as he approaches Dr. Pangloss and Candide, Dr. Pangloss asks him how it's going with him, and the slave smiles and says, excuse me, that he's happy to have paid the price necessary so that Europeans might enjoy cheap sugar. So today, we have people jumping off the tops of roofs in China so that middle-class Americans can have access to cheap electronic gizmos. We have people burning to death or dying in factories in Bangladesh so middle-class Americans can have access to cheap merchandise in Walmarts. We have middle-class America, consuming about 500% more of the Earth's resources than the average individual on the planet does. We have middle-class America directly and indirectly subsidized by the exploitation of millions of people in this country and the exploitation of hundreds of millions of people overseas. And in the net, my opinion is middle-class Americans are the parasites, and devices like minimum wage are a backstop to a type of abuse and exploitation that no one on this show has the integrity to connect the appropriate dots for.
Oh, really?
Correct.
We talked about minimum wage last year, or week, I should say. Last week, and
well, no one had a chance to call in last week, Josh.
Oh, well, that doesn't mean we didn't talk about it.
Well, you talked about it. I didn't say anything about it.
Well, I know, but you just said that minimum wages was a backstop against whatever, but
exploitation, right?
Yeah, we prove that that's absolutely incorrect.
It's actually more exploitation.
The minimum wage is more exploitation.
You proved it to yourselves. You didn't allow anyone to get in and challenge. Yacht Boy from Mexico living high in the hog off of Brown Sweat may have proved it. You may have proved it, and Cliché from Kenai may have proved it, but you haven't convinced me.
You just gave an example of government.
Yeah, actually, everything that you said, I mean, I'm not exploiting some Chinaman just because if I go buy something at Walmart. That's ridiculous.
You don't have to.
And you know what? You never. The one thing that you always.
Can I finish? Are you afraid of something? Are you afraid the herd of sheep you're trying to?
I didn't say a dang thing for like 5 minutes while you talked.
Are you afraid of losing control, young man? Mr. Silverspoon?
Mr. Silverspoon, you don't know me very well.
You don't know me very well.
Okay, go ahead. It's yours.
Okay, here's the deal. You're not out there with a gun robbing people. Neither are senior citizens out there with a gun robbing people. But senior citizens on Social Security are part of a system that rips off other people and subsidizes them. And this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that I don't disagree with the Social Security thing.
Well, look, Josh, we get mad at each other, and that's okay. But I think there's a lot of good in you.
No, I don't get mad at you. I mean, I'm happy to have you call in. You do, and I hope we never cut you off. Sometimes we might think that you're done and shut it down.
Well,
but
and sometimes we have against the clock. It just, physically you can't take any more calls. Can I ask?
well, but I would blame the fact of what goes on in China on the Chinese state. And I would say that part of it is with the U.S. state exploiting the Chinese people using the Chinese government. I mean, with their
a cut of the take.
Huh?
And you get a cut of the take.
I get a cut of the take?
Because I think his perspective here is that because you purchase a good that is cheaper, you are now guilty for those who are living a sub-American lifestyle by working in a factory where they get paid.
Okay, well, let's turn it around. What should I buy? And who should I buy from?
It's not a matter of what you should buy.
No, you said if I...
Okay, hang on. There's been an effort to hold organizations like Walmart and other organizations and Apple Computer has gotten pushed back on the factory conditions in China by consumers protesting about, you just have to connect the right dots. You have to be willing, you're a part of this. You profit from this. And I'm just saying, in the net, you add it all up and you look at how other people have to live on this planet and how hard other people have to work, Josh. And middle-class America has nothing to complain about in the net. For all the tax.
Can I ask you a question? This is Steve. Have you ever been to India?
No.
Have you ever been to Mexico?
Yes.
Okay. In Mexico, have you ever observed the working conditions of the working poor?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you know what the working conditions of those who do not have jobs are in Mexico?
No.
Well, exactly. They don't. If you don't have a job, you don't get any money at all. And they don't have working conditions because they don't have a job. When I was in India, I can tell you, and I've been to Mexico many more times than I've been to India, but when I was in India, I saw people who were literally living hand to mouth that were happy to have the opportunity to earn any money at all, no matter what conditions. And here's the thing. There were some people around there that would take these bicycles and drag people around behind them in carriages. It was basically a bicycle form of the rickshaw, and I was horrified. I'm like, oh my goodness, these people are working so hard for such little pay, and I didn't want to use it. I was just going to go take a regular taxi. But my host there in India is like, no, you should go take a ride on the regular rickshaw and have them carry you around town. I'm like, but it's exploiting them. He said, no, you're helping to feed their families. You are not exploiting them by giving them an opportunity to work. The fact that they are choosing to work in a job where they are making any money at all is a blessing to them.
May I share something with you, Steve?
Yes, go right ahead.
If you have any integrity at all, and if you're honest men and you want to test data, then two people on your side of the tennis court and one person on my tennis court, that's not the way to do it, is it, sir? That's called pathological domination.
Are you saying that you don't have a response or that you can't think of one?
I'm saying pick a champion and you shut up or Josh shut up and I'll argue with one of you at a time.
Well, okay. Well, I asked you a question.
How do you debate?
I asked you a question, and then you just yelled at me if I was afraid of something. I asked, who should I consume from them? Who should I buy? What should I buy, and who should I buy it from?
I think you can make an effort and join up with other people who make an effort to purchase products where people aren't being screwed or the environment isn't being screwed or are being screwed less. Let me put it that way. All right, let me put it this way, okay? Josh, let's say, all right, you're walking along the road and a bunch of guys kidnap you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they throw you in a van and they beat you up for a couple of weeks, and then they throw you to the bottom of a well. And you're in there for about 2 or 3 days without any food or water. It's a dry well. And then I mince over up to the lip of the well and hold up a rope and say, hey, Josh, boy, have I ever got a free market solution to your problems. What would you think about that?
I would ask what it was.
Well, it'd be you either do what I want you to do on my terms or you die.
Well, then at that point, I'd probably do what you wanted on your terms or I would die.
Is
depending on what the situation was. I mean, that's a weird hypothetical.
It's not that weird when you look at the other kind of situations other people are forced to deal with. You either work for us at our pay under our conditions, or you starve. That's a different kind of tyranny.
And I pointed out that tyranny is a state-induced tyranny. I'm not for the state being able to do that to the Chinese people. I wish they could rise up and overthrow them.
Yeah, but you're a part of that. Every time you buy something from you're at the end of that chain. You're connected to that. You're a part
Every
of that.
time I buy something from what? What do I purchase? You said I should purchase something from people that are less oppressed.
If you buy something from on this end, on the American end of a economic chain, if you buy something and other people are being economic raped as part of that production process, then you're a part of it and you have some human responsibility. That's what I'm saying.
And what is my human responsibility?
To not profit from the suffering and exploitation of other human beings.
I think recently the market has freed up a lot of the Chinese, haven't they?
Do you think that the free market is God's will?
Say that again?
Do you think that the free market is God's will?
It depends on what you're going to define the free market as. I mean, the Chinese people have come up out of some pretty crappy place. I mean, they're a little bit better off now than they were 30 years ago because their government's allowed some market stuff to happen there.
Okay,
you can't deny that. I mean, they are doing better. And I'm pointing out that it's the state themselves that I rant and rave against every time I come on this show because they're ultimately the one that is oppressing the people. And I would like to see them disappear. And I bet the Chinese, who seem to be a brilliant people, they've been around forever, could do a lot better.
Well,
and they'd probably dominate us in the market factor. They'd probably dominate us in several areas.
I think so. They will. But you said a lot of different things here, so let me just get back to one point that you made about Chinese people doing better. So let me put it to you like this, Josh. If I stole one of your trucks and you caught me and you wanted justice, and I said to you, well, hey, what are you all pissed off about? I didn't steal 2 trucks. I didn't steal all your trucks. I didn't burn your house down. Does a lesser crime make a greater crime okay?
I don't know. You said to purchase from people that are a little less stolen from.
You're changing subjects.
Well, no,
I'm
that's
saying
what you
it's
said.
wrong to exploit people. I'm saying it's wrong to exploit people.
I agree. I don't exploit people.
I'm not saying.
And I've had people stolen stuff from me, and I didn't beat them up, tear them up, throw them in jail, or anything. I've had people steal stuff from me a lot. In fact, and I've told them, if you need something, please ask. I'll gladly give it to you.
Was that the point of my comment?
No, but you're bringing hypotheticals that don't apply to me.
Time, young man.
That don't apply to me. I mean, you're saying, well, if I do this, then you're going to do that.
The exploitation of other people sure as hell applies to middle-class standard of living, which is very decadent and spoiled. Most people on the planet would love to have a fraction of what all these people who call in the problem corner complain about.
How do you think they... I'm sorry, but I got to step in on this because
you can't one against one.
Actually, we can do whatever we want because I pay for the show.
Yeah, exactly. And Josh, we got all the lines on hold here.
But I'm going to... So call in next week and we'll start over again. But that was great. Go to the hotline because I know who it is.
All right. Good morning. This is Patriots Lament. Who's this?
This is Cliche in Kenai.
Hi,
Cliche.
Jim. Oh, Cliche.
Man, token socialist, really? Now, it's funny because he seemed to take a lot of stuff personally, and I like him. I think he has a lot of valid points. I think he's misunderstanding where we can affect things. I agree that there's exploitation. You agree that there's exploitation of the Chinese people, but since there's only so much we can do about that, as an individual, I can't fix the mercantilist system of China. As an individual, I can't fix Washington D.C.'s monetary policy, which is essentially which is harming the Chinese people. But if I buy from China, that makes the Chinese quote unquote slaves in China more valuable to the Chinese government, which increases their ability to negotiate it increases their bargaining position. You know, if a slave master has a slave and the slave is worth nothing, the slave master can kill the slave and it's no loss to him. But if the slave is highly skilled and produces what the slave master wants, then the slave has a better bargaining position for improving his lot in life. And this is not an ideal situation. Nobody would argue that this is something which ought to be. But it is what is. So when I buy from China because they produce quality goods, I'm actually improving the life of the Chinese by making them more valuable to their slave master so they have a better bargaining position. If I could stop the exploitation of the Chinese by China, you know, in a moral way, not by invading and conquering, because that would be immoral. If I could stop the monetary policy of D.C., which really does rape other countries, you know, no question about it. Being able to print money, which the rest of the world has to accept pretty much at the threat of military invasion, you know, that's wrong. But I can't stop either of those things. But when I buy from Walmart and the stuff is made in China, I improve the lot of the Chinese because they are more valuable to their slave masters. Does that hurt people here? Well, you know, our standard of living is up. If we, you know, a lot of the stuff we make American production simply uneconomical because of all the mandates and stuff. You can't. Standard of living comes from production. It does not come from rules.
And isn't the minimum wage law part of the things that make our goods more expensive here and drives us to buy from the Chinese in the first place?
Yes, we make the regulations, the mandatory benefits, all of these things make us relatively less productive, and you know, so that the Chinese are better off, are more economically productive. As far as the environment, it's the state which destroys property rights. You know, you can go back to the Industrial Revolution when people were being harmed by the factories, and the government said, "Well, you know, we want to be a world power, so pollution is in the national interest. It's not in the interest of the property holders around the factories, but it's in the national interest. So therefore, we will just blanket." Vacate the property rights of the people around the factories, and in order to allow the pollution, because we want this production, because we want to be a world power. So, you know, I don't think Token Socialist has invalid points. I think he's missing the core of the problem. And, you know, if I walk up on somebody who's in a ditch or in a well and I offer them a solution, I didn't put them there. And I can only do so much in order to help them. It's, you know, he was all over the map, and I can understand where he'd only want to talk to one of you because it makes it a lot easier. And it's not an invalid. You know, no, I don't know. It's not invalid, but sometimes one person thinks of another point, and if he comes in with a particular area already mapped out, and you guys are kind of like have to be able to handle anything that comes up. I don't think it's unreasonable to say as long as that you guys swap off as points come up to you.
Well, I think the biggest thing is what you said, that too often we're looking at the end result. These people are being exploited. But I mean, that's what we do basically in life all the time. We look at the result and we say that's bad, so we try to attack the result. You have to go to the core of the problem. What's creating this? I'm not creating slavery in China. And if everyone quit buying from China, they would be horribly worse off. They were from 1947 up to when they started to. I mean, look at Tiananmen Square in 86. 89. They probably killed people in 86 too. No. So, now he'll call back next week and we'll go after it again. It's all good. I enjoy that stuff because there is part of the thing is that we're not for exploitation at all. We are for people to be free. And the market, yes, it does purvey freedom, because our version of the market is free exchange, not involuntary. It's all voluntary exchange from one person to another person. And yes, the Chinese are being manipulated, and they don't get paid a fair wage. They live in a communist society, and ultimately, actually, I'll just say this. Ultimately, it's up to the Chinese to free themselves, not me. The Chinese people are the ones that have to make themselves better. They shouldn't ask for the United States government to go in there and free them, because that'll just kill a lot of them. Ultimately, the people themselves have to put a stop to it.
I absolutely agree with that.
Jim, thanks very much for the phone call.
Thanks for calling in, man. Always appreciate
that. We only got about a minute and a half here before we're coming up on the Fox News. And Josh, you been to India?
No, I've not.
You know, I didn't meet a single person in India who had been taken from his home and put to work in a factory. I know that happens there, but I didn't meet anyone there. Most of the people that I met left their farms where they could have fed their families and they could have made enough food to eat for themselves, but they were looking for a better life, left their farms and went to the cities to work, which actually made more problems for themselves because then the standard of living in the city was higher than it was out in the farm.
Right.
And they didn't make enough money to both feed themselves and send money home to help out their families. So they would end up taking extra jobs and working 20 hours a day. And in order to work 20 hours a day, they had to start taking drugs to stay awake. I mean, you see the cycle this is on here.
Ultimately, I hope that when the Federal Reserve currency collapses, that the Chinese Communist government collapses with it because they're holding so much of our debt. That would be great. And maybe the people there can do what we ask the people here to do, to quit consenting to them and start something better. The Chinese are great people. There's no doubt about it. They could do a lot better. Americans could do a lot better. But, I mean, Jim went through all the different reasons why we're not allowed to do better. I mean, still, who do we buy from? I guess we could just, I don't know. I don't want to go on and on about what Token Socialist called about unless he's on the air. So,
one of the issues, too, is what's the best for your family, Josh? If you go out and spend $5 extra for a $1 product just to support some cause, or to buy 6 times the amount of goods to feed your family.
Don't touch that dial. Fairbanks is listening. 660 AM, KFAR, Fairbanks. You found a place to blow off some steam. KFAR.
If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. Samuel Adams.
The time is near at hand, which must determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves. George Washington.
And what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that this people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Thomas Jefferson.
Posterity, you will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it. If you do not, I shall repent in heaven that ever I took half the pains to preserve it. John Adams.
I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale. Thomas Jefferson.
Government is instituted to protect property, this being the end of government. That alone is a just government, which impartially secures to every man whatever is his own. That is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where arbitrary restrictions, exceptions, and monopolies deny to part of its citizens the free use of their own faculties. James Madison.
It would be an absurdity for jurors to be required to accept the judge's view of the law against their own opinion, judgment, and conscience. John Adams.
Whenever the legislators endeavored to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience, and are left to the common refuge which God hath provided for all men against force and violence. John Locke.
It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here, idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Patrick Henry.
My people perish for the lack of knowledge. God.
Some people you can never please. You might as well just let them be. They mock everything not their own from their imaginary throne. But I won't bow down even if the whole world thinks I'm crazy. So hey, hey, this song is for us. So put your hands in the air if you're crazy like us. Hey, 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 that's freedom you hear. Coming right to your ear.
And welcome to Patriots Lament, right here on KFAR. You can check us out online at patriotslament.blogspot.com. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
All right, Josh Bennett from Bighorn Enterprises in the studio here with us today. We have three callers, or
Let's see
I
if
should
they're
say
there.
3 lines on hold from the last hour. And just go through them quickly, and we have cleared them all out. They are no longer there.
Refuse to hold.
Well,
That's fine.
It's kind of hard to hold.
And irritating.
Well, yeah, it's hard to hold through the news sometimes.
Because they never know if we'll actually take the call. Because apparently last week we didn't.
Well, no,
Actually, last week we didn't.
took some calls, but we did not take all of the calls.
Oh, we
because-
took Jim's
yeah,
call.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have caller ID. We pick and choose.
No, we don't.
Oh.
No, we don't. We have.
I
we
just
don't
wanted
have
you to point that out.
We don't have a screener here either. We have absolutely no idea who's on the other line until we actually push the button.
Come on, come on.
So that's kind of.
Even our friend Toby
wait.
Socialist, who
Wait.
I would
Josh.
call a friend, and he'll call back next week.
Josh, I'd like you to take the
Do it
silver
again.
spoon out of your mouth, please. I can hardly understand you from speaking around all that silver in your mouth. Wait, were you born with a silver spoon?
Not quite.
So,
No.
how did you get all of the goods and the vast tracts of land that you have?
I exploited people.
Did you?
Mhm.
Really? Who did you exploit?
Myself.
Yeah? I mean,
I exploited my young children, forced them labor. No. I worked for it.
So
I
I-
like to think I worked. Actually, I just like to think that I was blessed. Through no fault of my own or good deed.
how old were you when you started working full time?
14, I think.
Okay. And
17 on my own.
17 on your own. You didn't go to college.
No.
So everything that you know, you've learned by reading.
Reading and mistakes.
So
Redoing.
having to go back and say, okay, well, that didn't work. Let me try something different. Right?
Yeah. That's all right. I don't want to get it. That's boring.
No,
But no, I didn't.
I think it's salient to our discussion, though, to point out that you are what I would consider the classic self-made man. Everything that you've got, your company, all of the trucks that you purchased through the work that you put in, saving up, scrimping, not going out and getting yourself into debt, being a slave to another man, but by living within your means. I mean, you lived in a trailer for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, quite a while. Huh. Yeah, my wife would probably be the best one to talk that story over. Oh, wow.
Well, and I understand you're not entirely comfortable tooting your own horn, so let me toot it for you for just a moment, because I think it's important for people to understand that you are not a product of the public school system. You're not a you're not a product of the college system. You're everything that you have, you worked for, and you got because you were free to work for it. And you have seen those freedoms being restricted to the point right now where you virtually need permission from the governmental authorities to do anything with your business. if the regulations were the way they are now, back when you first got started, would you have been able to accumulate?
No, I probably wouldn't have even done it. I would have done something. I don't know what I would have done. Yeah, that's a hard one to think about. I don't know what. They're definitely, I mean, every year, we've talked about how many regulations come up on the board every year. 2.5 million, I think, after, I mean, regulations that are compounded on regulations, compounded on regulations.
Things that restrict the ability of a person to make their own living, to make it so that it is much easier to just go and get a job where all you have to do is do what your employer tells you to do. You don't have to make any decisions. You have to all you have to do is just show up, punch a clock, and press buttons or whatever it is that you're doing. You know, thunk, 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 thunk. Basically become a human piece of the factory machinery. It's a lot easier to do that, and your family's going to be a lot better off.
Less risk.
Exactly.
Which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. People need to work.
Sure, and people have to make their own decisions in terms of what is best.
Yeah,
for
some
their
people
family.
don't want to risk things, so they go do whatever they do.
And
I mean, I just think that I know minus regulation, I could literally afford to pay my employees more. My employees make good money. I actually do not exploit them. If anything, I allow myself to be exploited by them. Not that they do that either, but no, I pay them good because I value them. I know that they're worth something to me, not just as there's a little bit. They're not worth something just to me as human chattel to work and make me a profit at the end of the day. They're worth something to me as human beings.
And that's much more of a Japanese style of management. When I was getting my master's in business communication, one of the case studies we were looking at is how the Japanese model is totally different from the American model. They don't need a minimum wage law in Japan because you have employers that will compete with each other to offer the best packages and the best benefits for their employees so that the employees will choose to come and work for them.
Yeah, I think that's a better... we talked about that a couple years ago, about having, like, the race laws and stuff. Do you really want to force someone to hire you if he hates you because of your race? How well is he actually going to treat you while you're there? Well, this law is protecting me. I'm going to get this job. Even though this guy's a racist and he hates me because of my religion, my race, or whatever, your environment, your working environment is going to suck. And he's never going to let you grow. He's never going to let you advance. You're just going to suck. Be much better off going somewhere, like you just said, where someone's competing for your value. That's the power right there. We don't need the state to get in the middle of it, because all the state does is take some of the money in the meantime that you could have got yourself. It's just like, yeah, whatever. We can go on and on. I didn't get a silver spoon. Whatever. He can say that. That's fine. But I know I didn't. I don't have to justify myself for that. And like you said, I don't like to toot my horn.
Well, it is important, though, when somebody makes some kind of a random accusation like that, it's called an ad hominem attack.
Right.
Instead of going after the argument that you were making, instead of going after the points and the logic that you were using, he turned it and made it against you. And he made a spurious accusation, which had absolutely no basis in fact. And I just wanted to, as a moderator, step in
appreciate it.
and point out the errors in his basic ability to reason through here, which I don't know if it was clouded by his emotion or if it was clouded by his experience. I mean, most likely, Token Socialist was exploited by someone. And most likely...
I know he has been.
Okay.
He's talked about it before. And I don't agree with what happened to him at all. I'm against what happened to him. The very structure, the very state that did the things to him, I'm totally against. We have different... Basically what it comes down to, we have different ideas about what the answer is, the solution, which is fine. Everyone should have their own opinions. We're just talking opinions. That's it. And we'll quit talking about Token Socialist just because he's not on the radio, and I don't want to beat that one up until he has an opportunity to be back on. We'll talk amongst ourselves again, hopefully in a better way. Let's take the calls.
458 Talk is the number. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
This is Marty over at Fort Greeley.
Hey, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I missed the last couple of weeks, so I want to maybe bring up a topic you guys already talked about. But before I do that, I want to talk about one other thing. As we talk about liberty as opposed to politics, unfortunately these days we find that liberty is so much impacted by politics. Back, I think, probably before your time in the Army, Steve, MI and the branches of the National Security Agency and the military were separate. And, I was in the Army Security Agency. And at that time, we had, United States Intelligence Directives, USID. And I still remember the one that was drummed into us the most, USID 77. And basically what this said is, if you were listening in, if you were monitoring communication, and it took you a certain number of seconds to determine that the communication that you were monitoring was, involving a U.S. citizen, that monitoring of the communication had to stop right then, right at that moment. And we actually had watchdogs that were behind us as we worked, monitoring what we were monitoring to basically back that up. And at that time, it was punishable by up to $10,000 fine and 10 years in prison. Well, now, since we've got the NSA doing data mining on, I found out just last night or the night before, credit card transactions back to 2006.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how that it takes care of a terrorist in Pakistan, but it's all politics. It's the politics back then was a Cold War, and we did what we had to do to get the job done, but we respected the sanctity of citizenship, maybe. And today we're such a pablum-fed society, and so many people do want to. I can't believe the number of people who answer these polls. Would you give up, a liberty to get security? And it's like, well, certainly there's, you need to be open to different ideas. Well, you don't need to be open to that idea. So anyway, that's on a national level. Here's what I called about. I left to go up to work for a couple of weeks ago, but just before I left, I think it was Channel 11 had a news story. And did you guys see this about the strippers getting these things called Bearcat?
Yeah, I have. I've heard about those.
The tactical vehicles.
Yeah. Well, no. These were supposed to be. I don't remember how they phrased. They didn't use the word tactical.
Hostage negotiation.
In the news story, it was a rescue vehicle. Well, I looked at this thing, and this thing is an up-armored Humvee, basically is what it is, complete with gun ports. Okay?
Yep.
Now, one of the things they were talking about is how much armor there is and the multi-phase bulletproof plexiglass and things like that. Nothing will enter this vehicle, and it's bomb-proof and so on. And while I'm watching the story, I'm thinking, if this is such a defensive thing, what do we need those gun ports for? I maybe pulling up to Burger King and getting a cup of coffee without rolling your window down? I'm not sure.
It has quite the offensive capabilities, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing.
But they said they won't use it for that, so, we can trust them.
Yeah, and that's what they said. We will... It's to put themselves in harm's way with shields that they can pick people up or get a negotiator close or something like that. So, you know what? I am willing to take the state of Alaska at their word. I'm willing to trust them at that. The first time a round leaves that vehicle through one of those gun ports, as far as I'm concerned, open season.
It's already happened, Marty.
It has?
Yeah. They used it down in, where was it? It was by Delta, I think, and they killed somebody. who was holed up in his house.
Using one of those vehicles.
Yes. And that was, you can look it up, I think, in the News Miner from maybe February.
Okay.
So.
Well, I guess then here's the solution. I went to the website, read about the thing. The thing will withstand a 50 BMG round.
Yep.
So there's some surplus 20 millimeter rifles out there. Guess that's what we need to start investing in. I don't know. So anyway, it's just.
No, it's disturbing, and it just shows again that, I mean, they always tell us these things are for our own benefit, which always boggles my mind because they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for one. I think they were $337,000 a piece.
No. The ones the state took, the one rescue vehicle they have down in Anchorage. There's two classes, and the ones that they're using just to run around, and that was the other thing they were so happy about. It'll go 85 miles an hour through the backwoods. Well, that's great. What the heck?
Well, you need that when you're rescuing hostages.
About 300,000 or 400,000. The one heavy-duty armored ambulance they have in Anchorage, $880,000. So it's just, and I'm at the point right now where all the protection I need, I have. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I supply it. And my backup is my wife. Okay?
Yep.
So, thanks very much, but I really don't want to have an up-armored Humvee coming knocking on my door. It's just, it's turning into just an army against everyday citizens.
Yes, that is a fact. And if it was...
That is a loss of liberty.
If it was for the benefit of the people, then they would allow us to have a couple of them ourselves.
You are absolutely correct.
But it's always for the benefit of the state.
As far as I'm concerned, everything since the Brady Bill, well, even farther back than that, when that amendment says shall not be infringed, that means shall not be infringed.
Yep.
So I should be able to run down to Far North Tactical, although my wife says Far North Tactical is closing or has closed.
Yeah, they closed.
Oh, man, I'm really sorry about that. I don't get over there that often. But.
Well, they're planning on opening back up, so I'm hoping for that, because I like to spend money there myself.
When you do, my concept of shall not be infringed is I'll be in to pick up an M60 machine gun.
I would love to be able to sell you one.
Across the counter.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Shall not be infringed meant, it's kind of, it's ridiculous that it can even be thought of anyway, but it absolutely means that whatever the military, original intent was whatever the military has, you have. You have the right to have the same as the military has. Of course, original intent, you wouldn't have a standing army in the first place, but original intent meant you had the ability to protect yourself by whatever means necessary. If it's a tank, you get to buy a tank. And that's what I would want to have. But that's not the way it is.
Well, and what would happen to you if you built yourself a tank?
You'd probably go to jail. I think you can own a tank, but I don't think you can be throwing 120 millimeter shells out of it.
What if you were to build
What
if you were to build a parapet around your house, basically make it into a castle and have cannons?
I think they'd burn it to the ground with a helicopter.
Yeah, they did that in London or in England a couple weeks ago or months ago. A fellow actually built an entire working castle on his property behind some bales of hay. He hid it from them while he was building it because he knew exactly what was going to happen. And sure enough, when he unveiled it, they came in to tear it down.
Going back to the point of the security versus liberty, if you think of what Benjamin Franklin said, they will trade security for liberty, deserve neither. And his point with that, too, was if you look at the writings of those guys, different things that they wrote, not only do you deserve neither, you will have neither. If you trade your security for your liberty, you will not have liberty nor security, because trading your liberties for that security empowers the state. The more power the state has, the less liberty you have, the less secure you will be from the state itself. Thus, we have armored up vehicles to save hostages and kill people. But is he still on there? Or did we move?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's why I heard the click, so I
wasn't sure.
moved the volume down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get...
I'm Roger that, man.
Ready to the next call? 458-TALK is the number. Good morning. Who's this?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. This is Jim.
Jim, what's on your mind?
Hey, I'm going to change the topic on you guys a little bit, but before that, I want to say that please cut off these long-winded people faster. Give me the proletariat my share of your airways, the public airways. So even though I understand you're paying for it, but we got to get our share. Anyways, that's a joke. But
I know. Go ahead.
The deal I've heard people talk about on the morning show, plus not so much this show, but on the evening show there. About GVEA, and I just had to throw in my little statement or story about it. But what I'm talking about is in the lower 48, they've deregulated. A lot of states have the utility systems, the electrical and gas.
Yeah.
And so and done away with the big monopolies. And so my a younger brother back in one of the states of the lower 48 joined this one electrical company, both gas and electric, that actually uses its members to go out and get other customers. And so, and you can, make a business of that. But within 3.5 to 4 years, he was able to create about a $2,000 a month income. 500, he gets his, we'll just say 500 of that is maybe his utility, so 1,500 cash. But so he gets his utilities free. And then he gets paid percentages because he's got all these people underneath him, blah, blah, blah. But so just an example of how the free market system can work for people and how we're screwed by GVEA up here. But anyways, I'm so sick of these people and their friendly co-op that really helps us all. But that's just my comment for today. And anyways,
no, I appreciate that. That's awesome because we haven't talked about it as much here. We do every once in a while. We just point out the fact that it's a monopoly. What do you expect? And
Right.
people call in, they complain to other shows about, we should force them to do this, or we should force them to do that. Well, the state's the one that gave them the monopoly in the first place. So
every monopoly is created by the state.
you don't ask the state, which is the instigator of the forced monopoly in the first place, you don't give it more power to do more bads. What we need is a free market here in power. That's why I'm so against, everyone said, why are you against trucking natural gas? Because they've monopolized it already. The whole natural gas thing is going to be a monopoly. And if you think you're going to get cheap prices from a monopoly, how can you think that when we have a monopolized system called GVEA? And we're paying $500 to $1,000 a month in the summer. And they say, we're saving you're saving $5 a month now in your bill. I want a free market system, so I'm paying $5 a month, period.
There you go. Anyways, thanks again for the show, and you guys have a good day.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the call.
458-TALK is the number.
If we had caller ID, we'd get to you sooner, but we don't.
Well, no, we wouldn't. We would take them in the order in which they were received, just like we do now. Good morning, caller. You're next. Who's this?
Good morning. Is that me?
It might be. Depends on who it is.
Oh, Rita.
Rita, congratulations.
Rita.
It is you.
Someone asked me about you yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, give me my phone number. Hi, Josh. Hi, Steve. Good show. You're all over the place. But, don't you know government knows what to do for us and do it better than we do?
I didn't take my Ritalin this morning, so I'm kind of everywhere jumping around. Whee!
Hey, I thought you might be interested. We were talking about all the property that had been on our property.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we found out where the plane, the truck, and the snow machine went. They went to interior towing. And the IRS paid interior towing 1 month of keeping it.
Storage fees.
And the storage fees, right. And then I think Doc called them and said, hey, you owe me more money. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. We will just sign it over to you and you can sell it.
Wow.
And that is what the man did.
Yeah, none of that got to go towards your bill?
No.
Your supposed bill?
No, they gave it to him.
You want to hold on to the other side of the the news?
Sure.
All right, we can be right back. We got the Fox News here at the bottom of the hour. More Patriots Lament in just a moment on KFAR. Local Talk Radio online at KFAR660.com.
KFAR. Fox News is now.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Officials say an arrest warrant has been issued for a heavy equipment operator in the collapse of a Philadelphia building onto a thrift store that killed 6 people. Authorities are searching for 42-year-old Sean Benshop, who they believe was using an excavator when the remains of the 4-story building gave way.
We can do much better, and we will.
That's Mayor Michael Nutter promising new rules to limit what heavy equipment may be used in a crowded excavation zone. And the third and final jewel of the Triple Crown just hours away from post time.
Early betting has Kentucky Derby winner Orb, the 2-1 favorite. Trainer Shug McGahee says it doesn't hurt that this is Orb's home track.
He went back into the same stall. He walked the same way to the racetrack, trained over the same racetrack.
Orb's barn is less than a 5-minute walk from the track.
Fox News Radio's Ron Flatter at Belmont Park. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Get your audio fix online at KFAR660.com with free downloads for 660 Club members.
Welcome back to Patriots Lament right here on KFAR. Before the break, we were talking with Rita, who, if everyone remembers, a few weeks ago we had her and her husband on the program because their house was being auctioned by the IRS. And just in case anybody hadn't heard, what was the final disposition of that, Rita?
It's still standing there. No, there were no bidders.
No one showed up to bid on the house.
They did, but I handed out paperwork telling them what the status was, that it's still in litigation, and 2 people who were interested said, we don't need this kind of trouble, and walked. And now the IRS is extremely upset that we dared do anything like that. Yep, you can't protect your property, even though everything they've done and are doing is illegal and unlawful.
And meanwhile, your boat and your plane were sold?
They had Doc haul the plane, the boat, and the truck and put it in storage at Interior Towing. And when he asked them that he needed money for storage fees, they just said, we will just sign it over to you and you can do what you want with it. You can sell it.
Well, I guess I won't be using Interior Towing.
And that is what he did. We know who bought the plane. I don't think it's a secret. That's Bruce Gillen, Harold Gillen's son. And I think Doc wanted the truck for himself, so that's probably what happened to the snow machine. I don't know. No, that did not go toward what they claim we owe. That just went to pay for the storage fees and whatever. I mean, this just goes to show, are they really interested in the money, or are they just interested in compliance?
Compliance. Absolutely. They're not interested in money, because if you'll make a deal with them, they'll drop your bill down to pennies, as long as you comply.
Yep. That's what the whole thing is about. And, people talk, oh, yeah, well, whatever. You can be next. And there doesn't have to be much for a reason. Maybe because you're politically incorrect, maybe just because.
Doesn't I think it used to. Doesn't the 1099 form say something about being a voluntary tax?
You know, Josh, you're right. I remember it that on the top of the 1040 it said voluntary.
Or 1040, yeah.
Yeah. And I have not gone back. It's in my lifetime, so it has to be within the last 65 years.
I remember I was a teenager reading it, and I just thought how ironic it was. It was whoever the Treasury Secretary was or whatever back then, which the Treasury doesn't have anything to do with the IRS, so I don't know why she was writing anything. But the whole point was, this is the greatest taxation system in the world, the greatest voluntary taxation system ever known to man.
Right.
Voluntary is in you do volunteer or you die.
Yep. Well,
I volunteer not to go to jail.
We were in court maybe 25, 30 years ago with somebody, and there was an IRS agent on the stand, and he was asked what his position was. Well, after a lot of hemming and hawing, it finally came out that he was the enforcement officer for the voluntary tax.
Compliance officer.
Yeah.
Voluntary compliance officer.
Things haven't changed, have they?
No.
Anyway, thank you very much for all you've done, and I really enjoyed the program.
Thanks, Rita.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Rita.
it. You know, Josh, kind of as an observation on that is that it seems like any time a business cooperates with the government in terms of going out to seize something that somebody else has, you know, because the government says, hey, go seize that for us. I mean, when you become voluntarily an agent of the state, doesn't that kind of make you an accomplice? I mean, if a known criminal were to call you and say, hey, Josh,
the state would claim that.
I need you to go and take this car from so-and-so's house. No, you're a criminal. I'm not going to go steal for you. You know, why is it okay for a towing company to go and impound somebody's vehicle?
I don't think it is.
I don't know anybody in the towing business.
I don't either.
Maybe there is some kind of a justification.
Oh, I do know a guy he tows big trucks, but
if they, you know, maybe if you've got a court order, it's kind of like that whole issue of actually having.
I don't think they force you to do. I mean, it's kind of like the drunk driving and stuff like that. I'm sure they don't force someone to come tow it off. Someone's making money off of it. But we better go to the calls or we'll get accused of violent things.
Monopolizing the airtime that you're paying for. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
Is it me?
It might be.
Okay. I'm Gloria.
Gloria, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hi, Gloria.
Well, I have about 3 issues. One is the other day, maybe about 4 or 5 days ago, somebody called me and asked if I was Miss or Mrs. And they just named my first name. And I guess because my last name probably wasn't pronounceable, and it was a voice that almost sounded like it might have been a Muslim or something, like from Saudi Arabia or something. And he said that the Medicare was going to be sending me the newest card in about 3 days that I would receive it. So he asked me to confirmation on my address, and I never did tell him my last name. He didn't ask, and I didn't think that it was, improper in a way, except that his voice was not very American. So I'm just wondering if anybody else had any kind of call like that, and if I'm targeted.
It's actually a scam, Gloria. I heard about it happening in Anchorage. Apparently it's happening now, too. If they can get you to give you their Social Security number...
He didn't get to that point.
That is an identity theft scam. If you get a phone call like that, the government doesn't need to call you to confirm anything.
Yeah.
They know everything about you.
They can't track an illegal immigrant, but they know who you talked to on the phone this morning. Right. Here's the thing. If you get a phone call from somebody asking you to verify your Social Security number or anything else like that, try to see if I don't know if you've got caller ID. Try to get a number from them. Ask to call them back, because if it is any kind of a reputable person or a reputable agency, you can call them back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if their area code happens to come from Nigeria, Call the Better Business Bureau. Anything else, Gloria?
Well, yes, I had a thought the other day, yesterday actually.
That's dangerous. That is. Did you have a permit for that?
Well, no, I didn't have time to run out and get a permit for it, but I know I've thought of this before, and I wondered if you've had any conversations about it on your program. I mean, I listen fairly regularly, but not every time. And I just sort of almost exploded on the inside because it sounded so exciting as a possibility, and I thought I'd run it past you people to bounce it around and see what you came up with. But, we've talked about for some time there's a third party would never make it, doesn't even try it. But what if that third party were called a Constitution Party and had to abide everything new? It would take time for it to maybe take over and correct things, but everybody who was part of it had to abide by the Constitution, and especially anything new, and then work on maybe past erroneous steps. Don't you think that might be a little bit exciting? Because in the meantime, people would be hearing about the Constitution right and left.
There is a party called the Constitutional Party.
There is.
And I don't remember the guy who ran for president last time. He was a good guy. I knew people that actually supported him. I think maybe Ron Paul even supported him that time. I don't remember who he ended up supporting for president. There is a Constitutional Party. It is a political party. It doesn't get anywhere because no one wants to hear about that. But one of the things that excuse me, one of the things that people don't think about is this Constitution was not made to restrict the people. And when people say, well, if you're a part of the party, I'm not getting after you, I'm just trying to explain something. If you're a part of the party, you'll follow the Constitution. I'll follow the Constitution. I don't have to follow the Constitution because the Constitution doesn't have anything to do with me. The Constitution was specifically made to restrict the government,
and
which was
every government employee and every government elected official swears to uphold and defend the Constitution.
But they don't.
No, absolutely.
And what happens to them?
Well, right, that's why I guess it would have to gain power in some sense, maybe enough, maybe startup power, kind of behind the scenes before it became full-fledged, powerful enough to take over and start educating people and getting people a little more excited about the trueness of the Constitution or what can be done through it.
It has, see, if we went, there are several things in the Constitution that would have to be changed if you went back to it, because it would just allow what's happened now all over again. The Constitution is a flawed document, unfortunately, but that's just the way it was made by man, so inherently it's going to be. There are several things in the Constitution that gave leeway to people. The reason we have what we have now is because there's several things in there that were left uninterpreted, allowed people to interpret it, which allowed us to get to the point that we are now. And the other problem with it is that it's a document that people say, well, you have to follow. I never got to sign it. I never got to agree to it or disagree to it.
Involuntary.
Jefferson was the one, I think it's one of the quotes that the kids do on the beginning of the show. The Constitution is not an instrument to restrict the people. It was an instrument to restrict the government.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with us.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the people. The only people that are subject to it are government people, and they're the ones that don't obey it. They like to use it like, we have the constitutional authority to force you. No, the original intent was not to provide anything against the people. It was just made to restrict government. It didn't work because there's too many factions in there that allowed things to happen that ought to have happened. With the different clauses, what is it? I can't even think.
Articles?
No, the clause in the very beginning.
Preambles?
Yeah, well, preambles. They use the preamble like it's supposed to be some kind of... That was not the main course of the document, but they're like, oh, well, look at the preamble. We're going to make law off the general welfare. That had nothing to do with the the base of the Constitution, but they took the preamble and used that to pass law.
Well, and the very first part of that is that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, what's the very next phrase? Establish justice.
Establish
right?
justice.
Where's that? They don't don't bother to do that. Whether they're going to go on and promote the general welfare?
I think, to your point, it's a good point. I think what we have, a better way to look at it, so there's no argument on the flaws of the Constitution, is just basically tell people about liberty and educate them on that. Educate them on freedom. And if the people would just be educated on their own freedom, what they have the right to do, which is everything according to their own conscience that doesn't harm anybody else, I think that would be the radical change. That would be the change that we'd see that would actually do something. Because if everyone knew that, when they saw D.C. or the state or the borough infringing on that liberty, they'd call it out immediately and say, that is wrong. And when Obama says, well, it's legal, he'd say, I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if you codified it. I don't care if you got a judge to say it was okay. That's wrong. And we're not going to follow it. But anyway, we got to...
Can we find a good title for that particular process so that it could be maybe named that way and maybe recognized by people, some people anyway, who might gradually accept it?
Well, there is the Campaign for Liberty.
Yeah.
Those people are getting it done, even though I think they're going towards the political process too much. But I don't think there's a political solution. People got to get free in their mind. We have to get people to understand. We don't have to make them, but we just have to show there's a better way.
I'm going to make you be free. I'm going to set you free.
Going to chain you and free you at the same time.
Going to set or erect free for democracy. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. That's a different president.
Someone said a long time ago, you should ask Frank to write a little book, Liberty for Dummies or something like that. And I think that would be a good idea. Not necessarily to call it that or to imply that, but... that might be kind of fun, just a little pamphlet. Like your right as a juror, your right as a grand juror, your right while you're traveling, your right to travel, your right to be free. Maybe that'd be fun to do.
That would be fun.
Well, my number 3 point.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Can't get rid of me yet. I loaned up my truck to a friend about a year and a half ago because he was moving and needed to transport things. And he got pulled over, and so he claims that it was, false thing. But anyway, the truck was towed away and impounded, and it cost me $1,000 to get it out. And but in that place, the things that were in the back of it were stolen. There was a new radiator that was going to be put in there, etc. And you go to the place where they keep everything. It's like the city has this thing where they're impounding things all over. They're making money, and those things are there forever, it seems like. Anytime you go there, you see so many automobiles that are impounded and either waiting for release or I don't know what the city does with them, but it's almost like, they're using it as an income.
Well, it wouldn't happen if there wasn't a monetary gain. There's no doubt about that, unfortunately.
Gloria, thanks very much for the phone call. Appreciate hearing from you. Josh, I do have a correction here. We were talking about the fellow who was in that standoff with the troopers with their brand new vehicle. I looked up the stories. Here's one from the Newsminer. The 3 armored vehicles were purchased on March 30th of this year, and on April 17th. So how many is that? Like 3 weeks later? Here's this fellow in a standoff with the troopers down by Salcha, not that far away from here, and they called in the new vehicles. And, oh no, he's brandishing a gun. So they moved in. They didn't kill him. The house burned down.
Oh!
And as he was fleeing the back of the house, he was taken into custody. So I'm sure he was the one that set it on fire.
Yeah, I'm sure that's good.
458.
They got to use it to negotiate at least.
Yeah, exactly. 458 Talk is a number. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
Is that me?
Yes, it is.
Aaron Bennett.
Aaron Bennett. Hey, we missed you today. Thanks for calling in.
I I got a bone to pick with Josh's dad, because if he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, his other 9 kids got screwed. But no, on a serious note there, I think we can all agree the most exploitive thing is slavery, right?
Yep.
It's outright slavery. And one of the characteristics of slavery, or if you were going to define it, would be the ability to stop from running away and the assigning of labor, right?
Yeah.
You can assign labor and keep them from running away. Well, what is the characteristic mark of communism? They don't let you run away, and they assign you your labor. So by definition, it is slavery. The only big difference that I can see is if you compare, communist Russia to American slavery, where we had slavery in the 1800s, is you don't have any genocide involved with the American slavery, because they had a vested interest in the capital stock, where something like communism saw 20 million people killed underneath communist Russia, because they're disposable. They only owned the labor. They couldn't take the human being and sell it. In other words, the human wasn't property, just every aspect of their life was property, right?
Right. They didn't have anyone to sell it to.
Well, socialism is a soft form of this same thing. We all know socialism is a soft form of communism. The labor is still being exploited. You're still having your labor taken and given to other people. So I guess I just don't understand how token socialists can be a socialist and be against exploitation when it's the soft form of the ultimate form of exploitation. And communism is even worse than outright slavery like we had in America, because of the disregard for the capital stock. At least in America, they didn't have a genocide of the black people.
No, it was we had a genocide of the brown people, though. I mean, we killed an awful lot of the American Indians. Right?
Oh, I realize that, but if you get what I'm trying to say, is there's no worse form of government than communism, because it is outright slavery with no regard for the capital stock. And socialism is just a soft core form of it.
Yep.
I'm glad I wasn't there today. That's all I got to say. 'Cause I had time to calm down and call in. But anyway, you guys have a good one.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate that.
Thanks for the show.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that was Aaron Bennett. Actually, Aaron's the one who approached me in the first place about making this show happen, and he actually got you on board, Josh. Back
kicking and screaming.
Yeah. And now it's one of the things that you can't do without it.
I know, it's so fun.
All right, you ready to take another call?
Yeah.
458-TALK is the number. Good morning, who's this?
This is Winston.
Hello,
what's on your
Winston.
mind?
Hey, Josh. I just wanted to make a short comment here. It's a discovered law that I hadn't heard anybody talk about. An organized minority will always overrule an unorganized majority.
Yeah.
If we can get the organized minority that's where the problem's at. Even if the majority organizes, the first thing that happens is there'll be a minority in the majority that starts trying to take all the power. This organization is what's killing us. It's an incomplete thought, but I'll let it go at that.
No, you're right, because they are organized, and the bad thing about individualists and liberty-minded folks is that just that word. They're individualists, and they rarely like to organize things.
If only we could get the anarchists to organize.
Yeah, they just don't do stuff like that.
I'm not in favor of anarchy. I'm in favor of autonomy. There is a difference there.
Yeah.
I enjoy the show, and I appreciate you putting it on. And I know it's at a great expense. So, like I say, I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate when you call in. In fact, I loved it when he calls in. He's always got some great things. He always brings up stuff that I forget, which I love.
You know, I like just the very fact that he was making the distinction between anarchy and autonomy, because an awful lot of the things that we talk about in terms of our view of anarchy is exactly that.
Right.
It's the absence of the state in favor of autonomy, that you are your own master. And so I know that word anarchy has been kind of co-opted by the violent and the leftists, and maybe.
But yeah, they try to make it sound like that's the violent and leftist is the anarchists, because there were anarchists supposedly, but they weren't real anarchists because they wanted another form of state to rule. And the word itself is just, we don't want a state ruling us. That's it.
Just like
so we use we say anarchist because that stirs more juices in people's bodies.
Exactly, yeah. All right, 458-TALK is the number. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
I don't think Jesus wanted
Well, this is Martin. How you doing?
Hey, Martin, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Beautiful day out here today. Thanks for the program.
Thank you.
And I want you guys to know if two of you want to get on your side of the tennis court against me on my one person on the other side, that's okay too.
All right, so wait, you're confident enough in your skills?
He's probably got one of those automated.
Don't gang up on me now.
You probably got one of those automated ball servers, huh?
I got a ball returner.
Actually, yeah, he's got a guy behind us ready to knock the knees out from behind us. One
at a time now. That lady that called up with the situation with the IRS, that they would be disposing of her property while litigation is still going on, is just so unconscionable that it takes your breath away when you hear that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's sad, man.
It is sad, and unfortunately, it is rampant these days.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to say that a huge number of people in this country simply don't care about their rights or their freedom. They don't care.
Yeah.
And they think that if you're getting investigated by the IRS, that you must have done something wrong in the first place.
Well, exactly. And I remember that voluntary statement being on the tax forms. With the computer age, they used to remember the tax booklets they used to send everybody that showed you how to do your taxes, and then there was page after page after page of where you fit in the schedule of payment.
I'm not old enough to know that.
Oh, well. The back page of that thing had two pie graphs on it. One showed you where the money came from, one showed you where the money went. And it was interesting to see that, but I haven't seen one in years because, of course, we're doing it on the computer and they don't feel the need to show you that anymore.
The pie graph would be too large.
Well, it was interesting because I'm no fan of Bill or Hillary Clinton's in the slightest form, but for 2 years while Clinton was president, we not only had no deficit, but we had a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
And the pie chart showed the reduction in the amount of, because we made payments against the debt those 2 years.
Right.
And it showed a very slight reduction in the amount of interest being paid, because that was in the pie chart, how much interest we were paying every year to the Federal Reserve and to the debt holders for the deficit spending. And it came down. Well, of course, the Federal Reserve could not handle that.
Mm-hmm.
They could not handle 2 years in a row with them not getting their annual deficit spending stipend. And so I remember watching them get on TV, and the threat of inflation is the excuse they used. Not actual inflation. The threat of inflation is the excuse they used to ratchet the prime rate, that's the rate they charge us for our own money, up quarterly, up, and they broke the economy over their knee like a dead stick.
Yep.
That was back when gold was selling for $280 an ounce.
Yep.
And I walked into work one day prior to that. The economy was hot. The stock market was up. I mean, things were cooking, and I said, wow, the rest of the world must be really impressed with the United States and its economy.
We're right at the end of time, man, but
thanks for the call.
Appreciate your call.
Real quick, contact information.
It's patriotslament.blogspot.com, and the email is patriotslament@gmail.com. Go ahead and email us. We'll gladly return it. See you next week.
KFAR Fairbanks, 660 AM. Online at KFAR 6.